Playing cards, to me, are the greatest invention in terms of recreation and gameplay. This week, a little playing card history, how playing cards can make you a one-of-a-kind person in the world, plus a personal playing card quest I once embarked upon. Looks like it's my deal. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, commentary, or story from our lives.
Season 20, Chapter 10, Deck of Cards.
If I was stranded on a desert island and I could only have one thing outside of a supply of food and water, I would ask for a deck of cards. Remember that game, Desert Island Disc? Which album would you want if you were stranded? I would say, yeah, I'm really enjoying Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks for the millionth time, but would you mind if I traded it in for a deck of cards? That's endless entertainment. There are literally thousands of games you can play with a deck of cards, and new ones are being invented every year. Games you can play with 2, 3, 4, or more people, and most importantly, by yourself. Solitaire. Just you and a deck of cards. And there's almost 600 different kinds of solitaire. If I'm alone for the foreseeable future, a deck of cards is all I ask. Which reminds me, it's always driven me crazy that Tom Hanks' character, Chuck, never opened that last FedEx package in the movie Castaway. Remember? The symbolism of that for a movie story, well, that was okay. Chuck, he's a FedEx employee. He left that last package unopened to serve as an inspiration. It represented a self-imposed mission to complete delivery of that package and thereby reconnect to his old life before the crash. That's great and all, but when I watch the movie now, I yell at the TV, "Open the package! You're alone on a desert island for 4 years. Open it!" There could be a GPS tracker in there, an emergency radio beacon device, or just about anything. A book of matches, box of granola bars. A deck of cards. Can you imagine how less boring your castaway life would be if you had a deck of cards? Open the package, you Nimrod! Incidentally, since I'm way off on a tangent already, let me continue for a moment. So in Castaway, FedEx employee Tom Hanks, Chuck, boards a plane in Memphis, Tennessee, en route to Malaysia. There's a storm, a plane crash, desert island, packages wash ashore. He opens all but one. That package still in his possession upon rescue. He then symbolically delivers the package to a ranch believed to be in Texas. Remember, he meets the woman, then he stands at a crossroads. Roll credits. Question: why was a package in Memphis, Tennessee addressed to Texas on a FedEx plane to Malaysia? Seems unnecessarily circuitous. Very inefficient route, wouldn't you say? Looks like somebody screwed up. Bothers me now. Almost ruins the movie. What's the deal? And what is the deal is my lame segue to get back to the topic of the day, deck of cards. Playing cards have been around for well over 1,000 years, associated with everything from high society bridge players to low echelon degenerate gamblers. Not to mention that playing cards are at the root of all magic. Every magician gets his start with a few good card tricks. Is this your card? Ooh. For decades, cards was the social pastime of choice. When people got together, they played cards. Every household had at least one deck of cards. And why is it called a deck of cards? Probably from the 1500s, when sailors played cards to pass the time. The stack of cards would be similar to the orderly stacked style of a ship's deck. Deck became a term for anything that was stacked in an orderly fashion. Ergo, deck of cards. As far as anyone can tell, playing cards originated in 9th century China. How about those ancient Chinese, huh? They gave us pasta, fireworks, and playing cards? Pasta, fireworks, and playing cards. Boy, there's a night out if I've ever heard of one. It is thought that early playing cards may have been a form of currency, or that currency was used as playing cards. Hey, maybe that's how that game came about, Liar's Poker. Remember that? My dad used to play with all of his buddies. Liar's Poker was played using the serial numbers on a dollar bill. Two players would take turns calling out hands based on the serial number, like, I've got 3 5s, and the other guy would go, I have 3 7s, and so on and so on. At any point when it's your turn, you could call a bluff on the other guy, and if they were bluffing, you won the dollar. But if they weren't, they won the dollar. I remember my dad checking every dollar bill that would ever come into his hand to look for a good serial number for a bill that would be good for Liar's Poker. If it was, he would set it aside for gambling. From the 9th century in China, playing cards as an amusement and diversion spread across the rest of Asia and into Europe over the next few hundred years, growing in popularity. In the late 1300s, playing cards are mentioned in a manuscript from a German monk. That is our earliest confirmed record. How about those monks, huh? Living a life of piety, penance, and poker? Why, Brother Jacob, you broke your vow of silence. Well, what is I going to do? I had a full house, come on. By the 1400s, Europeans developed the idea of 4 suits. There were swords, clubs, cups, and coins. Gee, I wonder if 2 clubs beat 1 sword. It was the French who developed the better-known clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades. The French monarchy inspired the designations of kings, queens, and knaves. And it was also the French who standardized the deck into 52 cards, thought to represent the 52 weeks of a calendar year. 4 suits, 4 seasons, 13 cards per suit, 13 weeks per season. Well, we certainly have some lovely weather during the Jack of Spring. Shakespeare often referenced cards in many of his plays. King John, have I not here the best cards for the game? To win is no easy match, played for a crown. The Earl of Sandwich had the sandwich named after him, after he asked for a food that would not interfere with his ability to continue playing cards. One of the earliest card games, thought to be well over 400 years old, cribbage. Steely Dan even wrote a song about it, Peg. All right, only cribbage players are going to get that joke, and it's also not true. But the fact about cribbage, yes, it is centuries old. Crib, as most of us players call it. Cards were a big part of my growing up. That's what our family did on Sunday get-togethers. Well, my dad's side of the family anyway. Mom's side of the family, on Sunday, they went to church and then they had lunch. On Dad's side, they played cards and drank whiskey. Which is the path to righteousness? Well, I don't know, but all these years later, I no longer go to church, but I still play cards. You study the 7 virtues and the 7 deadly sins? I'm looking for a 7 of spades or 7 of diamonds. I guess because of all that early childhood exposure, I became obsessed with cards. Whenever I had a friend come over, I would suggest we play cards. I didn't care much for Go Fish. I love the game War. Simplest of games, just divide the deck in half and then start flipping them over, see who has the higher card. At the end, most cards wins. Mom didn't really approve of the cards, but kind of caved at one point. In a kind of if you can't beat 'em, join 'em move. One year I got a pack of cards for my birthday, the faces of which were classic writers and authors. I learned about Longfellow, Wordsworth, Scott, Percy, not at school, but as faces in a deck of cards. I've got 4 Yeats, but enough of those kids' games. Early in life, we were taught cribbage. I played with my grandfather, Dad's dad, of course. And as I said, Mom didn't really warm to cards, although I do remember people coming over for a few rounds of canasta. Canasta? How's that for a blast from the past? Canasta really grew in popularity in the 40s. It's a 2-team partner game, rummy style. They use 2 decks of cards and the jokers. Seems too bulky. I tried to learn it a couple of times, didn't take. The family Sunday whiskey swilling game of choice was Kaiser. Never heard of it? Well, don't worry about it. It's a Saskatchewan game with some roots in Quebec logging camps. Also very big among Ukrainian immigrants. No one is really sure why it didn't catch on beyond that. It's a good game. It's a bid and trick-taking game similar to bridge or whist, but much simpler. The game takes 4 people, 2 sets of partners. And at the risk of boring you to tears, Kaiser is played with only 32 cards of the playing card deck. 8 through ace of all suits, plus the 5 of hearts, which is worth 5 extra points, and the 3 of spades, which is -3. Try not to get that. To even out the deck, we also include the 7 of clubs and the 7 of diamonds. You deal out, everybody gets 8 cards, the bidding begins. You bid based on how many tricks you think you can take, how many points you can make. You make your bid, you score, and you do it again. Every house in Saskatchewan I've ever been in had a deck of cards that were made up of 32 well-used cards and 20 fresh, crisp, never-used cards. That was the Kaiser deck. The deck virtually useless for any other games. So you had to have another deck around to play rummy or cribbage. They actually sell Kaiser decks now, made up of only the 32 essential cards, but they're hard to find. Saskatchewan and, northern Quebec mostly. The Fedoruk family played Kaiser. Game after game, match after match, whiskey after whiskey. And as a kid, all I ever wanted to do was play. When I got old enough, Dad and I would team up and we were awesome. Virtually unbeatable. I think that's why I loved cards. Because my dad loved cards, and I loved my dad. And this was something that we could do together. And this was back in the day when parents didn't really think that they had to, spend time with their kids. My dad was also apparently a notorious poker player. Notorious as opposed to, good. Family legend has it that on the way home from work one night, he stopped at a poker game, almost lost his entire paycheck, turned it around, won it back, and won a house trailer, only to lose it at a second poker game he stopped at before arriving home about even, maybe a few bucks down. Our family owned a house trailer for about 90 minutes, right up until my dad thought his tens were good. Years ago, when there was the NHL players' strike, a bunch of pub poker leagues sprang up. I played in one of them, actually for over 10 years, the Red Hot Poker Tour. I won a big screen TV, a bunch of other stuff, ended up top 10 on their all-time leaderboard across Canada. Texas Hold'em, one of the greatest card games ever invented. I still love to play whenever I can. I don't like watching poker per se, but I do watch the clips as they come up on social. I like to see how some of the pros play some of the big hands. Plus, one of the prizes I won was a private poker seminar session with the legendary Daniel Negreanu, the Canadian poker phenom they call Kid Poker, even though he's like 51 now. I like watching hands he's in. I've also played against some pretty good players. And it's not that I'm that good, but I'm better than I used to be. And as I heard one semi-pro player say, I'm finally good enough to realize how bad I am. Anyway, the point is, I've seen even the most seasoned poker pros who still kind of believe in the poker gods. You know the poker gods. They giveth, they taketh away. They live up on the mount with the golf gods and the lotto gods. So let's say you play poker like a pro. You play based on math and odds and other players' tendencies. Let's say 3 sevens wins a hand. Next hand, 2 pair wins. It's aces and sevens. And then the next hand after that, you get pocket sevens. Even the most logical of players will say, I don't like my chances. Sevens again? Even though that has nothing to do with the way poker players calculate possible outcomes. But you're thinking, ooh, the poker gods and sevens. And this leads me to one of the great facts about a deck of cards. Take any deck of cards, previously enjoyed or brand new out of the box. Shuffle them up. Once, twice, whatever you want. That shuffle, that deck of cards right there, you are now the first person in the world in the history of cards to shuffle a deck into that particular order of cards. And probably the last one to do so as well. The odds are virtually impossible No, like they are impossible. To shuffle a deck of cards in the same order more than once. Even if you're some kind of card sharp. You know how to calculate odds, right? So let's say you have 3 different colored balls, a red, a blue, and a yellow. You throw them in a box and then you close your eyes. What are the odds that you will draw out the balls in that order, red, blue, yellow? Well, your first pick you have 3 chances, your second pick you have 2, and your last one 1. So it's 3 times 2 times 1. So odds are 6 to 1. But the order of a deck of cards is 52 times 51 times 50 times so on. You want to know what those odds are? They are 1 in 8 unvigintillion, actual word, although, I don't know, they may have made it up for this card thing. Unvigintillion, which is actually an 8 with 67 zeros. Those are the odds of shuffling one typical deck of cards the same way twice. 1 in 8 with 67 zeros. So the next time you hear a poker player say, I don't know, it feels like kings are due, well, he's an idiot. By the way, if you want to try and prove this, you take 5 seconds to shuffle a deck of cards, and you're going to shuffle a deck of cards 1 billion times. That would take you 158 years, and 1 billion is just 9 zeros. Our number has 67 zeros, and 8 times that. I wonder if even AI could do it. Here's my quest story. Years ago, I read an article about a guy who put together an entire deck of 52 cards from cards that he had just found on the street. Now, if you look this up, it usually refers to a guy named Peter Slattery, who apparently accomplished this task in daily walks over a 6-month period during COVID. I can't seem to find the original article that I read, but I'll bet you Peter Slattery read the same article. And this was years before COVID that I saw this article. And I read the article, and I thought it was interesting that it could have been it, except a couple of days afterwards, I'm walking to the store, a walk I've done like 1,000 times, and there on the grass is an 8 of spades. I don't think I'd ever seen a playing card just lying on the street before. But it was like destiny had just put it there for me. Like destiny knew I'd read that article and said, you must begin your quest. So I picked it up and I began. It had to be 2 or 3 years before I even got my collection up to 50 unique cards. You do find a lot of duplicates. And a while after that, I finally retired my quest. I added 2 random cards from decks I had around the house, so I do have 52 unique cards, but it's not a complete and true found deck. I only found 50. I could keep searching, I guess. I mean, I did have fun with it, but at some point you got to say, enough. This is stupid. And during this quest, by the way, I found a large number of playing cards that had messages of love written on the back. What's this? And because they were discarded, lying in the gutter and blowing in the wind, I became fascinated with the idea of this love affair gone sour. I'd found most of these cards near a local mall, so then I expanded my search area to like a 5-block radius. I found quite a few more. And then I saw online that this was a bit of a fad for a while. It's called 52 Things I Love About You. What you do is you buy a deck of cards and you write a personal message on the back of each one, and then maybe you bundle them with a fancy ribbon or something, and then you gift them to your beloved. Aw, that's so sweet. Lots of examples of this online, but the ones I found, well, they'd been cast away. Like, hey, it's over. So sad. I did turn that story into an article that the Toronto Star actually published. You can still Google it, Toronto Star, Larry Fedoruk, discarded playing cards, still out there. Incidentally, those playing cards that you see at the convenience store and elsewhere, likely they are Bicycle brand of playing cards. Bicycle. Introduced in 1885 by the Russell and Morgan Printing Company. Bicycle playing cards. They were named because of the 1885 craze of cycling. Gee, I wonder if that'll catch on. Eventually, Bicycle became the flagship brand of the United States Playing Card Company. I don't know why, I just like that name. The United States Playing Card Company. Says it all. For a long time, they were the standardized bridge and poker decks worldwide. And, these days, if you're just an occasional card player, they're okay. But otherwise, crap. If you play a lot, spend a little extra money and get yourself the plastic-coated deck of cards. The deck of cards. We have a lot of other kinds of games out there. They have wheels and buttons and electronics. But this simple deck of cards is the best. Hundreds of years old, thousands of games, and 8 unvigintillion possibilities. I like those odds.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. Larry Fedoruk, 37, at gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.